My name is Brittany Loinas, and I decided to choose Star Wars as the piece of art that I'm going to be discussing and critiquing because it was mentioned in the textbook, and I think it's such an interesting series. It was very well made, very well directed. A lot of directors were involved in the series of movies, but I thought it really appeals to a lot of different people of a lot of different ages. It's very, very popular today, and it started back around the 80s in 1980 and has continued to be this phenomenon in our culture and in our society that so many people enjoy. And I wanted to learn more about it, learn more about some of the directors, and really just analyze the movies more in depth. And specifically, the movie that I'm going to be referring to today within the series, I'll be mentioning the series a lot, but specifically, the movie I'll be focusing on is A Return to the Jedi. The director of Return of the Jedi was Richard Marquand. He was born on September 22nd, 1937, in Lanish, Cardiff, Glamorgan, Wales. He was a director and producer, known for a couple different famous movies, and he unfortunately passed away in 1987, September 4th, in England. But a quote that he said, which really stuck out to me, was, "I'm very interested in directing actors. Many directors direct cameras." So, an essential part of a film and conveying something as a filmmaker or as a director or as an expression of art itself are the actors. And that's something that the textbook didn't really mention, which is a super vital part of a film. It's the actors, it's the way they're expressing their character, the way they're expressing the emotion, how realistic it looks, because that also translates into participation. And I listed some things here which explains why it is a well crafted series, and some elements of the textbook explain this. But the first one I put was that it evokes participation, and the authors of the textbook actually said that in order for something to be art, it has to be recognized as art by people. It gave a couple different definitions, but one of them was that it needs to evoke participation and demand participation by the viewer. And like I said before, I think good acting and good conveying of emotion and expression is a vital part to evoking participation in a film. And the Star Wars series has always had very good acting. The fight scenes and angles, the cuts of the cameras, they cut back and forth. They did close up images of the swords, which were really the laser swords. And they did close up images of the facial expressions. They did rotating images of the characters, like a 360. They did behind their heads, far away, their posture. They got all different kinds of angles, so we can really imagine the characters as if we were there, as if we were seeing them close up and from far away. So that's super important and adds to the realism of the film, is the angles, the kinds of editing, the kinds of cuts that the editors do that are working on the film. So everything just worked together beautifully in this film, and I think in all of the Star Wars series, and it makes it look realistic. Another thing are the sounds that evoke participation and make it feel real And this movie is an escapism type of movie, it's fantasy. Um, and in one of the definitions of what we're looking for art, and especially in film, is not necessarily a complete fantasy world, but just a transformation of reality. And Star Wars uses real people and uses a tangible and real thing, which is space, as the setting. But it really is intriguing because we don't know much about space. So it intrigues the viewers in that way because it's something we want to learn more about but we don't know more about. So it's kind of cool to think about that there could be this um, fight, this galactic fight happening in space that nobody knows about. And they kind of play with the idea of space and of superpowers in space and of the Jedi's and good versus evil. And we're going to get to the themes in a bit, but the sounds really add to it. And with the laser swords, I mean, the noises it makes, it's not like a real sword. They have a specific sound to them, and the theme, the music in the background, the theme music in the background while they're fighting, it adds to the intensity of the fights. And the dialogue, the demeanor, everything really works together cohesively. The background music, the sound effects, the sounds of the spacecraft really add a lot to it and make it feel as if you were really there. And it also has a unique cinematic structure. So the films, the way they're set up is it goes from the end to the beginning. So the first film that came out is actually the last, and as they continue to release, it goes further back into the beginning, which is really different and unique because a lot of films are trilogies in the way that it starts from the beginning of the story and goes to the end, but this series is actually reversed. So I think a lot of people were really intrigued by that, and they were drawn to it more because of that uniqueness that it has. So, some of the themes of Star Wars are friendship, good versus evil, family, spirituality, and redemption, which are all themes that we can relate to in the real world. So, even though this is an escapism type movie, this is a movie about um, special powers and about Darth Vader and about evil and good. These are all actually pretty realistic themes that we could relate to in our own lives. And we all have friendships. There's always good versus evil in our lives or in ourselves that we're trying to fight. And we can all relate to family, to spirituality, um, and the spirituality in the film is the force. So the force, they always say the force is with you, or let the force be with you, and we can relate that really to God even. And a lot of it could be taken faith based. There's a lot of religion that could be incorporated with it, and just also the story of redemption, of good triumphing over evil. And it's really relatable themes, really deep themes when you look at it, at the underlying themes. And I think it's really cool and really interesting how they take the details of all the films. Um, for example, Darth Vader, Luke, I am your father. That's one of the famous lines in the film in Star Wars. And it's cool how they incorporate family, and people could relate to that because many people may not even know who their parents are, or um, just that unexpected plot twist really added a lot to the film. And Luke is working for the light, but then um, the Darth Vader fell to the dark side, and it's just this really intricate plot, still with heavy underlying themes. Another thing the textbook talks about is violence, and how if the violence in a film becomes too much, or it's too little, or it's boring, or just the film in itself, if it becomes emotionally saturated, that people lose participation and they actually become apathetic towards the film. So, whether it requires too much emotion from you or whether you don't feel anything at all towards the film, it has the same effect, which is apathy. And I think that Star Wars does a good job of having some moments where you're really on the edge of your seat and you can't wait what happens next because there's a fight scene. It never gets too gory, it never gets too violent, enough to the point where it causes you to check out emotionally. And also, another thing is, um, another emotional component to it is the family aspect that always keeps you on the edge of your seat and guessing and wanting to know what's coming next is the relationship aspect. So it really helps you connect in many different ways from these themes, good versus evil, the friendships, the betrayal friendships, the trust that you have. You really get emotionally invested into these characters and the spirituality. You always want the good to win over the evil and redemption when the good triumphs the evil. All of these things that we innately relate to and cause us to be emotionally invested into the film. All in all, I think it's a great piece of art. It's very creative and it's not hard to get engrossed by the film and to really get involved and participate in it. And I encourage everybody to watch it.